And welcome into the Radio Days edition of Now and Next. This week, sitting at the round table on Moore in the Morning on Newstalk 1010 Toronto.
The Free for All Roundtable. Round 1.
On round 1, Dave Trafford is here, Chief Executive Producer at Story Studio Network, host of On the Ledge, your Ontario politics broadcast, or podcast, I should say. Former NDP insider Marion Nader is here, CEO of Nexus Strategy Group, and Tamara Cherry from Pickup Communications. Good morning to you all. Okay, so very much in your wheelhouses today would be provincial politics. What do we make of the fact that an MPP who is the deputy leader of the NDP in the House has decided to go and run for the federal Liberals? Let me start with Dave Trafford. I don't know what to tease out of this necessarily. It seems somewhat craven.
I think the Prime Minister has, there was clearly conversations that were going on locally to make sure that this happened, as much as all as it sort of resembles a floor crossing, if you will. I heard you sort of alluding to that earlier, John. But the idea that a provincial NDP sitting member is going to run for the federal Liberals is kind of telling, just in terms of the state of the NDP. God love the efforts of Marit Stiles, but you look at the polls right now, and the NDP in Ontario have next to no traction whatsoever, and it has been a wasted 6 or 8 years for them since, Andrea Horwath took over as leader of the opposition. They have not managed to make any kind of a dent in Doug Ford's armor, and let alone against a leaderless Liberal party. So I think it says a lot about what's going on with the New Democrats here in Ontario.
Yeah, Marion, people often run for the party they can get elected with, whether or not it aligns directly with their politics. So this tells us a lot, I think, as Davis said, about the state of the provincial NDP, which is it ain't going anywhere.
Well, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, it's a hot mess. You have an Ontario New Democrat who's running for federal Liberals, essentially under a leader that is a progressive conservative. So it kind of would have made more sense if it was like a Justin Trudeau. But under Mark Carney, you kind of scratch your head and you're like, oh, this is kind of weird. Yeah. So, I mean, basically, it was tough, and I think it's definitely going to hurt the party. They've had a tough ride, and trying to make a dent is tough. It's like Teflon Doug Ford, and during the time when I was there with Dalton McGuinty, it's hard to break them. But it was really a dolly riding rather than an NDP riding. And when there was chat before the holidays, that even some New Democrats might cross the floor, I got to say, no one was thinking it was going to be a provincial New Democrat. Everyone was thinking it might be a federal one. But, the Carney government players, they're playing a really masterful game. I give them credit for that. So kudos to them.
Yeah, well, Tamara, it's very clear. I mean, in spite of having moved the Liberal Party to the right, Mark Carney is now attracting NDPers, for Pete's sake. And maybe it's careerist of her to do so, but there she's going to run for the Liberals.
I don't know. I mean, that's what I'm thinking about, certainly in this story, John, is what this means for the Liberals. Mark Carney, as you said, has attracted from the right. Now he's attracted from the left. He's really building a reputation as somebody who can bring people together from all sides. And I think that bodes very well for him. In terms of the provincial NDP, how can your heart not break for Marit Stiles? I think all of my panelists here love Marit Stiles and can't figure out how that party has not managed to bode better under her leadership. But I absolutely wish her the best.
But Tamara, don't you think that this is all about not having to say goodbye in any formal way to Bill Blair? Nobody seems too upset about him leaving Toronto.
Well, I mean, I think this is also a part of replacing the Justin Trudeau regime with the Mark Carney regime. Slowly but surely, he's been taking pieces of the Trudeau empire out and putting in his own pieces. So I know that people are saying that they're ready to move on to different positions and everything like that, but that's kind of what it feels like to me.
Well, Dave Trafford, one last aspect to this would be that there are Liberal people who have been waiting for their place to run, and they keep getting bypassed. Is that going to become a problem for Carney? I mean, John Tory Jr. wanted this seat.
Yeah, and I think that's legitimate. The thing that jumps out at me is that there was no consultation necessarily with the folks in the riding, the local riding association. There was no nomination of candidates. And to some degree, we have seen that backfire on a leadership level. Even you go back to the NDP, here in Ontario. Remember, yes, Marit Stiles is the leader of the official opposition, but she got the job because nobody else wanted it, right? Nobody ran against her to be the leader of the NDP. So when you do not have,
awesome, Dave. She's still awesome.
But okay, that's great. But the point being that nobody wanted the job, and I understand why now. But at this level, when you do not have that level of engagement at a grassroots level, I think that hurts. So yes, he got an all-star candidate, but did it hurt him because he avoided the idea of really engaging the grassroots? And it's not a done deal that he's going to win this riding, right? In Scarborough.
But I think it's also important to note that, yes, absolutely 100% agree with you on that. It's that I think there's going to be a contested for the provincial seat. I think it's going to be hotly contested with Nate and, vying for that and Mike Crawley, who likely are both going to be running for leader of the party. But I think for Marit, this is an opportunity for them to finally say, okay, this was tough. This is going to hurt. But let's regroup, let's strategize. It's still early in the mandate. And, obviously there are underlying issues. Let's fix it and move forward. Contested nominations are very important for the local riding and for the people of that riding to be able to say, we get to choose who wants to represent us. Not the top down. So you're right. It definitely could backfire. It also shows that Carney's not playing politics the same way. He's very top down, very, involved in terms of handpicking who he wants to do what. And that's a very different way than a lot of people in politics are used to how it's getting done.
So during the Olympics, Torontonians will be able to start drinking at 6 a.m. Tamara Cherry, that probably flies in the face of this city's sort of Presbyterian roots, but I think we can handle it.
I think that Toronto can handle it, but I beg the question, why? Why do we need to drink at 6 a.m. because there is a sports game on? I don't know. Maybe I'm just really uncool. And yes, I admit I am. But also, I just feel like this is why do we live in a culture where you need to drink to watch a sports game? Why can't people just get together and not drink? That's my only thought on this, really.
All right. Dave, does this put us on the road to perdition?
No, you know what this is all about? This is really the mayor is forward thinking here, John, realizing that the Maple Leafs are not going to make the playoffs, so there would be no reason for people to go to the bars and drink and watch in the playoffs. So we're going to have a month of February. And what does this do to all the poor folks who made such an effort to have a dry January? Now we've got a whole month of drinking all day.
Yeah, well, it was very funny. This past weekend on Sunday, I walked up to a bartender and I said, I'll have a 0 beer. And he said, dude, January's over. That's right. I'm still having 0 beer.
Well, normally drinking at 6 a.m. is called a problem, but it's the Olympics. And
exactly.
But it's called supporting the team. I don't know who's out at 6 a.m. at the bar. I mean, if I'm watching the Olympics, I'm at home, with the blanket and my cup of coffee. So
but
whatever, keep it short.
I covered a lot of stories when the World Cup was on and the bars were open on Yonge Street, and I would be bar hopping as a morning reporter, doing that all the time. And you know what? There was a good contingent. There was probably about 12, 15 people in the bar. I mean, not a lot, but it's still, in some cases, from a business perspective, it more than paid for having the bartender in there and staff opening the place up. So if that's what it's going to take to get them over what January was, and we laugh about dry January, I think that has a real impact on restaurants and bars right now. And they're having a hard time anyway. Just get, Jerry Agar's take on the restaurant situation. But I don't think this is a bad thing for the businesses themselves. Whether or not I'm going to be up and, banging on the door at 6 a.m. is a different story.
Stephen Harper is in Ottawa being feted on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of his being elected Prime Minister of Canada. They unveiled his portrait last night, and I guess it's a chance to sort of reassess with 10 years since he left power, the legacy of Stephen Harper. Tamara Cherry, I'll start with you as the Westerner on the panel.
Yeah, so I think this is a really interesting moment, especially after we talk about having somebody from the provincial NDP go to the federal Liberals. This is also a moment where, we hear stories about Stephen Harper advising Prime Minister Mark Carney on things, like really a story of unity. Who would have thought back then? Like when I think about Stephen Harper, I think back to, it would have been 2005, summer 2005. I was working at the Calgary Herald, and there was an entire story dedicated to the fact that Stephen Harper, who was then running for either prime minister or leadership, whatever it was, but of Stephen Harper making a joke in a that was the entire basis of the story, that Stephen Harper made a joke. This guy was such an apparently flat personality. And look at how far he made it and what an impact he had on this country. It's incredible to see his lasting legacy in today's moment in particular. And I've just really been enjoying watching his sort of influence in the current moment.
And Marion, some conservatives are waxing eloquent about Stephen Harper as if he was the greatest prime minister ever. I think he was a fine and suitable prime minister. There's a lot of stuff I wish he had done that he didn't do, but it's also interesting just to reflect on those 10 years.
Definitely. And this is what happens, right? It's Ottawa loves ceremonies and nostalgia, and you kind of rewrite history a little bit. But hey, I met Harper a number of years ago. My brother was getting an award, and he was funny. But you don't get to see that, during question period. And he was funny, and he was really kind, and that's what really resonates. But I think there's something where you can pay tribute to someone and their service, not necessarily agree with their policies, but also just appreciate that, it's not easy being the prime minister of any party. And you really do try to be the best, do the best that you can. And I think in hindsight, I think he did a good job for the hand that he was dealt. Didn't mean it, I voted for him, but I just think that it was good that he got the recognition and the accolades that he did.
Yeah, and Dave Trafford, it's been interesting this week watching him share the stage with Jean Chrétien. Last night, he was praised by Mark Carney. There's that sort of, it's almost like ex-presidents, this conviviality and this common understanding. We know what the job is.
Yeah, I noted that yesterday. I thought it was kind of interesting that was sort of the tone of it, and they were both on the same page. That is to say, Harper and Chrétien, when it came to unity, and to Tamara's point, could you have more, divergent personalities as prime ministers between Chrétien and Harper? But I also think it's really interesting that he's preaching this gospel of sort of mature bipartisan approach to politics on the same day today where Poilevre is going to meet with the prime minister. And, the quote from Pierre Poilevre post-convention on the weekend is, "We don't have time for credit taking or patting ourselves on the back. We need to start getting results for people now." And that's going to be the message in terms of how cooperative and supportive he's going to be for Prime Minister Carney. So, what bug did Harper put in Poilevre's ear that might change the track for the Conservatives federally? I think that's kind of the tone that's changed is interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Good to have you this morning. Marion Nader, Tamara Cherry, and Dave Trafford.
Now and Next is an Eye Contact production.